So this week we're going to talk about a new way to make selections, and that's going to be using the pen tool. So if you look in the lower section of your toolbar, you'll see a series of pen tools grouped together. There's the regular pen tool, freeform, add anchor, delete, convert point. We are going to be working with the pen tool to make a selection of SockMonkey here, and then we're going to go back and add some anchor points. We'll also be working with the arrow keys that are down here, which are called the Path Selection Tool and Direct Selection Tool. When I use the pen tool to make a selection, I'm actually making what is called a path. You may have noticed over here in your Layers panel that there's another tab in the background called a path. So I'm just going to jump ahead to a version where I already have SockMonkey selected with the pen tool. So we can look over in the paths and you can see that I have what looks like a selection, but it's a working path. And I'll jump back to where I am right now without any sort of selection made with the anchor tool, the pen tool, and you'll see under the paths I don't have anything yet. So I'll switch back over to the layers. So to use the pen tool, there are a lot of advantages to the pen tool because we can make really nice curves. It's a little bit tricky at first, so I would suggest watching this video first and then trying to do it on your own. I'm going to make a first anchor point by just clicking and letting go. I'm clicking right here, and what I want to do is to try to get the curve of his arm. And I'm going to go about halfway through the curve of this part of the arm, and I'm going to click again, but this time holding the mouse down, I didn't let go, I'm going to drag. And as I drag, I get these endpoints, and as I move those endpoints around, if you follow where my mouse is, you can see how I can change that curve. So I'm going to just kind of drag it out till I get a curve that follows the outline of his arm. I'm going to let go. Now what I need to do next is I need to clip this tail off. So I'm going to go right to the anchor point I created before and hold the Alt key down and click it. And I clip this tail off. So now I can start a new section here. I'm going to click down into this curve, this point of his arm, and drag out. And as you can see, as I can drag out, I can change that curve. And let go and clip that again, Alt, click. I'm going to switch over to my hand key and move down a bit. Normally I would use the keyboard shortcut space bar to switch to the hand, but unfortunately on my version of Photoshop or something on my computer it's not working, so I have to switch. And so your first instinct might be to make these kind of smaller steps, these smaller anchor points. Just remember, click and drag out, and that's fine, but you might find that you can actually accomplish a lot with the curves pulling by doing pretty large sections all at once. So I made that one, and I'm going to go to the anchor point that I created and Alt click and snap off that tail. Come down here, holding it down and drag out to get those arms there, and just pull the arms until I get the curve that I want. Click and Alt click. I'll just do one more and then I'll jump to my finished one. So I'm going to go up here and pulling that out, and I just need to adjust until I get the kind of curvature that I want. So now I've jumped over to this other version of SockMonkey where I've already made the path all around him. But in this example, to work on his arm here, I made it just simply with two anchor points, one right here and one all the way down here. And I did that so I could show you how you can go back and touch up these anchor points, touch up your path if you need to. So what I need to do is to add two more anchor points to kind of extend this out. If I go back over to my pen tools, there's the option to add anchor point. And so I'm going to click right here so I can add one of those anchor points, and I'm going to drag that out. And then I could take one of these tails and shift the curve if I needed to. And then I'm going to add another anchor point here and also extend that out. And the same is true if you made too many anchor points. You want to do redo one. You have the delete anchor point option. So I also want to point out the path selection tool and the direct path selection tool. So the path selection tool is going to actually have me move my entire path. And the direct selection tool allows me to click on just one of these anchor points and go in and edit that. So if I want to just take one of these and shift its position a little bit, I can do that with my direct selection tool. Okay, so now that I have SockMonkey selected with my pen tool, making all of these different anchor points, the next thing I can do is I can right click on him and choose Make Selection. And here I have the option if I wanted to add a feather, which I don't, and I'm just going to make it into a new selection and click OK. And so now he's an active selection. So at this point I could simply copy him and paste him wherever I wanted, or I had that option, I could click on my mask icon, and now I also have him as a selection, and he's isolated from his background by creating the mask. So for the sake of working on this project and this particular exercise, I'm actually going to just stay with the selection, and I'm not going to use the mask right now. And I'm going to copy him, and we're going to go over to this image, and I'm going to paste him in. So here's SockMonkey on, I think it's Capitol Hill Street. And I've brought him over here, and I want to resize him. So what I've talked to you about in terms of resizing, we go to Edit, Transform, Scale, or Control-T, is you can make things smaller, but you can't make things larger. And that is true. But there is an option in Photoshop to be able to take your object and to make it smaller, and then, let's say, next time you work on it, you want to make it a little bit larger again, not going larger than it was originally. So currently you can't do that. Once I make things smaller with Control-T and I transform it down, once I commit to it, I throw away those original pixels. And if I do Control-T and I try to get it larger again, I'm not getting back my original pixels. Photoshop has to resample, has to add pixels, and it interpolates those pixels. So those pixels are kind of made up colors, and the end result is it's blurry. So what I can do though is I can convert my object into, I can convert my image that's on that layer into a smart object. So if I go up to my layers panel, up here there's this tiny little icon, and if I drop on it, it says convert to smart object. And my icon that I have on my layers panel changes a little bit. So now when I do Control-T, I can make it smaller and I can commit to it, and then I can do Control-T and I make it larger, but I'm not going past its original size, and I'm not actually taking away or putting back the pixels until I commit to it, until what I do, it's called rasterize. So when I make it a smart object, what I see here on the screen is actually just a reference to the original. So that's why I can make it smaller and I can make it larger, not going past its original size though, and I'm not damaging it. And then when I'm ready to commit to it, if I go up to Layer, Rasterize, Smart Object, it's now back to being a regular type of image, and if I made it smaller and then larger again, I would have that problem. So it's just something to keep in mind if you are bringing in an object while you're making your hyperreality or working on any piece, and you want the flexibility to make it smaller and then maybe make it larger again. Convert it to a smart object first, and you just click on that icon, convert to smart object. But then there will be some options later on where there's some things you can't do to it while it's a smart object. So you can rasterize it, and I'm just looking to see if that is an option on here. Actually, I don't think that's an option through your layers panel. But so I go up to Layer, Rasterize, Smart Object, and it turns it back to a regular object. Okay, so I'm going to continue on with this video, and in the next one we're going to talk about how to create a drop shadow and change out the sky and work with some of our burning tools non-destructively to make SockMonkey look like he actually belongs to the